Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I am going to talk about one of the key points in commercial property investing: inspections. Like if you want to buy commercial property, then you need to hand it over to a property manager or called asset manager, and they are going to manage your property. You can also manage by yourself. But what we are going to talk about today, while this property management is happening or the asset management is happening, there is something called inspection, the property inspection that has to happen, right? It could be once in 6 months, it could be once in a year. So in this video, I am going to give you one key points about the inspection. So if you want to know, then stick around. Alright, so before I start, I am assuming that you are an interstate investor. Interstate investor means like if you are in Sydney, then you are buying it in Brisbane or in Melbourne. If you are in Melbourne, you are buying in Brisbane or Sydney or Perth. If you are in Perth, then you are buying the other state. So that's how the interstate investors are, right? Now, think about a residential property. Like if you actually own a residential property and you are an interstate investor, I have a simple question. Do you inspect your property yearly? And most of the times the answer will be no, because you say, oh, I have a property manager. I have a property manager who is local, who does that everything for me. That is the reason I actually gave that property management my property, so that they can manage and I do not have to go. Now with residential, I just wanted to clarify, yes, if your property manager is great and they have been inspecting, they are sending you report and they're doing this work diligently, yes, that is going to be fine. But if they don't do, then you will be in trouble, because remember, your property manager is managing hundreds of properties. Then if they don't manage as diligently as they should, then you own one or two or three properties, these are going to be in problem. Now this is the same thing is for commercial as well, right? You would think, because you say, oh, hey, if I do the same thing in my commercial property, if my commercial property manager is not doing it, then I will be in trouble. Now here is the difference between residential property versus commercial property. As I say that in residential property, tenant has no skin in the game. It means that tenant will only do things unless they really have to. So in other words, like let's say if there is an issue in the house, it needs to be fixed by the landlord for residential property. If there is a hot water system broken, then needs to be fixed by the landlord. Unless the landlord is fixing this, it's not going to work. And more importantly, tenant is going to keep on hustling you. Now here is the difference with commercial, right? In commercial property, tenant is doing the business. Because they're doing the business, so if something is not working, they have an utmost interest to fix things. In fact, they have more skin in the game than the residential property, which basically means that they are going to look after the property better than the residential property. Hence, in residential, you must inspect at least once a year, even though you have a property manager and if you are an interstate investor, to get the maximum result. Because once you go there with your property manager, then the property manager will also take that as a serious notes and make sure that they know that every year my landlord is going to come, so they will take your property more seriously than the other properties where the other landlord has never visits. Versus in commercial property, even though you don't visit, you have an extra payer which is from the tenant side, because they need to make sure that if something, they need to keep the things neat and clean. If something's got broken, they have to fix it, because if they don't do, they cannot run the business. And if they cannot run the business, they will have a significant loss in their business. Think about it for a moment. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have a property which is a pizza shop, and that pizza shop is been running, trading well, although it is landlord responsibility to fix something if it is broken. But think about, as a landlord, if you delay it for 1 or 2 days, 3 days, if they cannot run the business for next 3 days or 5 days, they will be in trouble. So their responsibility, they would take care of the property so that it doesn't occur. There is no negligence. There is, in terms of cleaning, there is not much negligence on the tenant side when it comes to commercial property. Which is why when it comes to the commercial property, as an interstate investor, you do not have to go every year, because tenant tenant will do things as per the lease. Tenant will do things because they have to run the business, and that is the reason, as long as you put a property manager or asset manager in commercial property and they are doing the inspections, there is an extra check anyway, but you do not have to go. So this is my favorite line: if you own a residential property as an interstate investor, you must visit once a year to your property. You have to, otherwise you will not get the best out of your investment. In commercial, you don't have to. If it's good if you want to do these things, but you don't have to, because the tenants have skin in the games. They are going to upkeep the property, and as long as your property manager or asset manager is doing basic minimum, your property is going to perform better. So that's one of the fundamental difference in terms of the strategy why you would invest into commercial property. Think about this for a moment, because if you think like this, that yes, it makes sense, then you would go towards commercial property. If not, then you will always be into residential. I hope this videos give you a clarity of the strategy about why the inspections is important in residential property and why inspection is optional as a landlord point of view, even though you are an interstate investor. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.